it's Mo. It is time for another 2022 book haul revisit. So in 2022, I started my RAB spreadsheet, my recently acquired books spreadsheet, and this was a spreadsheet that I've been keeping ever since that details every book that I bring into the house. So every book that I get at a book sale, at a little free library, if I buy it new, which is rare, or any other way that it comes into the house, I put it on my RAB spreadsheet. In 2022, when I first started this spreadsheet, I also did book hauls every month. I don't like book hauls. I don't like the overconsumption imperative that book hauls put on BookTube, and I don't particularly like to watch them. I don't think it's really interesting to hear people talk about books that they haven't read yet. I much prefer wrap-ups or recommendation videos or even anticipated release videos, even though I don't watch those very much either, just because they tell you something new. Just seeing what a person picks up is not that interesting to me, especially knowing that someone like myself might not get to those books for years and years and years, which brings us back to the idea of these book haul revisits. I'm going through all those book hauls that I did in the year of 2022, and I am seeing what books I've read off of those. Do I read the books that I haul? Have I read the vast majority of the books that I hauled 2 years ago? Spoiler alert, I have not read the vast majority. Some months are better than others, and some months I brought in so many books that I had to do 2 book hauls for 1 month. So we're only on my book haul for July. So that is the book haul that we're going to watch today. It's about 18 minutes, but I did visit some little free libraries, so there is some little free library footage. I'm going to see what books I hauled. We're going to look at that together, and I'm going to tell you what books I've read out of this haul, if any books got unhauled without being read, if they got DNF'd, if they got put down into the basement, or maybe they were part of a collection and they went right on my read shelf. Maybe they were a book that I've already read but didn't own a copy of and it went on my read shelf, etc., etc. Mostly, we're here for the read and unread books to see how many of these unread books are still on my TBR. Also, we are making a priority read list. As I go through these videos, I'm jotting down some books that I think should be priority. So let's get into the book haul. Oh, I didn't start a screen recording. I never, ever start a screen recording. It's a real problem. I'm really bad at it. So I talk about how I thought I was going to get more books in July than I actually did, which is a good sign, something good to start us off with. But the first book that I see is The Sea by Iris Murdoch. I got this at a little free library and I have not read this book. I've heard good things about this one. I think it is about a very unlikable male character and his relationship with women in his life, but I haven't read it yet. I haven't read any Iris Murdoch yet. Can I just say my hair looks great here. The next book that I see is one that goes on collections. It is a book that I have already read. It's The Last Bus to Woodstock by Colin Dexter. It's the first in the Inspector Morse series of books, which I love Inspector Morse. I first started watching them on TV, and then I read all the Inspector Morse books, but I read abridged copies of them, which I didn't realize at the time. So I read them on audio. They were narrated by the guy who plays Inspector Lewis in the TV show, which is awesome. So I started picking these up. It's funny that I have this one now because this month in September of 2024, I just picked up 2 more. So I just picked up the second in the series. My plan is to revisit these all physically and read them all, well, maybe on audio too, but not the abridged versions. So this one, I think technically is still on my mystery shelf, which is down there, you can't see it. But I am counting this as collections because I have already read this book. Oh, so should we just put it at read? Let's just put it as read, not collections. It's both, but we'll put it as read. And then the other book that I see, which I'm talking about at the same time because I got them from the same place, is Thousand Cranes by Yasunari Kawabata. I have read some Yasunari Kawabata now, but I have not read Thousand Cranes. And I actually think that this is on a priority list already, so I'm not... Should I put it on my priority list? Let me put it on my priority list. Okay, so the next book I see is The 10,000 Doors of January, and I have read that book. I actually read that book earlier this year for a Portal World vlog, which hasn't come out yet, so you will see that one eventually, but probably after this video. The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow is a portal fantasy about a young girl who finds a portal door. The next book, I'm going to say, it's definitely unread. I don't know what to call this. I guess we'll just call it unread. The next book is Queen by Katie Roberts, and I picked this one up because it was a Katie Roberts romance, because it was a novella, because it was very short, because it was about vampires. That's basically all I know about it. What I didn't know about it is that it's the finale in a trilogy, and I think this trilogy is linked to a larger series. I've never read any Katie Roberts, so I picked it up and I was like, oh, I'll just unhaul it right away. But then I found out it was signed, so I kept it because I was like, what if I love Katie Roberts, and what if I desperately want this signed copy? Since 2022, since learning more about Katie Roberts' writing, I don't think I'm gonna like her very much as an author. Maybe I will, you just never know. But the series that I am the most interested in is this like vampire harem series. So I have kept this. We will just call it unread. Pretty sure it's in the basement. The next book is Red, so we are neck and neck so far. That's doing good. It is American Spy by Lauren Wilkinson. I read this last year in 2023, and it was interesting because a lot of it takes place in Burkina Faso, which I didn't know much about at the time, and since have learned a little bit more about that African country, so that was interesting, but I didn't think it was like a very well written book. I didn't love it. I have read one other Lauren Wilkinson since then, which was a very short story, and that one also wasn't great, so I think Lauren Wilkinson is just not the author for me. So I talk about how everything else in this video is from the Ladies Auxiliary Book Sale, which you all know I love, and I went to recently this year in 2024. The first book I see I have read. It is Cape May Ghost Stories Book 2 by Charles J. Adam III. I read the first book I think in 2020, which I had on my shelves for like years and years and years, like a really long time. And now I have read the second book as well. I'm pretty sure that I read Cape May Ghost Stories Book 2 in 2022. It is a nonfiction about ghost stories set all around Cape May, New Jersey. The next book is unread. It is A Coney Island of the Mind. It's actually literally right here. It's A Coney Island of the Mind by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. This is a poetry collection that I have not gotten to yet, although not recently, but like last year I realized that my good friends Hannah and Liz, who I babysit their cat, Gus, my nephew cat, like this poet and actually have a poem of this framed on their wall. So that's very cool. I would really like to get to that one. It has not come up in the poetry rotation yet. The next book I have not read, this is Old Lady Voice by, I think her name is Elise Victoria. It's a translated work. I can't see from the screen who the translator is. During Women in Translation Month, I heard about this book like online for the first time. I'd never heard about this book online, so I'm glad that I have it. It's a little bit long and the font is quite tiny, which is one of the reasons that I haven't read it yet. Not because I mind tiny font, but just it feels like a commitment and an endeavor to have to read a long book with a teeny font. So I am interested in this one. I think it is like a coming of age story of a young girl by Eliza Victoria and translated by Charlotte Whittle. Next is another book that I have not read. It is The Dreamers by Karen Thomas Walker. I heard about this book on Books and Lala's channel. It's like a dystopian sci-fi, I think. I would really like to get to this one. Maybe it's a plague book. Oh my gosh, the tides are turning. The next book is Kinky Friedman's When the Cat's Away. Kinky Friedman was a writer who wrote a lot in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I think very recently passed away. This book I got for my Cat Cozy Mystery vlogs. I don't know if this actually has a cat in it. Next, we have another unread. It is In the Night Cafe by Joyce Johnson. This one just sounded interesting when I read the blurb. I don't remember what it's about. I've never heard anyone talk about it. I am still really interested in it. I think it was a shorty, and it was in my shorty September pile of possibilities, like all the short books on my TBR video recently. The next book is Red. We could turn this around. It is Clouds of Witness by Dorothy L. Sayers, one of the Lord Peter Wimsey Whimsy books. I have read this. I actually have a couple of copies of this now because I found some other good like vintage mass market paperback copies. I think it's the third in the series. The next book is also read. It is Two Old Women by Velma Wallace. This is an Indigenous Canadian writer. I read this one. It was very short. It was really interesting. I did really enjoy it. I say here that it's based on an Alaskan myth, and that it's by an Inuit writer, specifically indigenous to Canada and obviously Alaska. The next book is very interesting. It is Mutant Message Down Under, which I have unhauled. It's the first unhaul of the video. This one actually has gotten a lot of flack. It's supposedly about a woman who is indigenous to Australia or has some ties to indigenous people in Australia and goes and lives with an indigenous tribe there, but it was like completely fabricated. It's been discounted as false, and that the tribe that she supposedly was with has said that it's not true and that it's not cool what she did, and she basically was a white woman who appropriated indigenous Australian culture to write this book, and it became like a big thing and people really liked it, and only later did it come out that she was corrupting the story. So I have unhauled this one. Next book is read. That is Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. I actually read that this year, but it is the third Jamaica Kincaid book that I've read. I read two other books of hers which were nonfiction. Annie John is a fictional account of kind of a basically early childhood / birth to becoming a full-fledged adult and moving away story. I did enjoy it. It's not my favorite of the Jamaica Kincaids that I've read, but I did really enjoy it. The next book is unread. It is The Decline and Fall by Evelyn Waugh. I think that this is somehow tangentially connected to one of the Evelyn Waugh books that I've read. Which one is it? Why can't I think of it? Oh my god. Oh, Brideshead Revisited. I think it is tangentially connected to Brideshead Revisited, but maybe it's not. Maybe they just have similar covers. But I do know that some of the characters in that go on to other books. So this one is unread, but I definitely would love to read some more Evelyn Waugh. I've read two of his books so far. The next book is unread. It is Amistad Maupin's Mary Ann in Autumn. This is, I think, the 8th or 9th book in the Tales of the City series. So I am working my way through the Tales of the City series. I read the first 3 many years ago, several times over, and since then I've reread all of those, and then this year I read 4 and 5. So this one is on my shelf. I will eventually read it, but since I'm reading the series in order, I haven't gotten to it yet. The next book is unread. It is By the Light of My Father's Smile by Alice Walker. I've read a few Alice Walkers now. When I made this video in 2022, I had only read one. I really like Alice Walker's writing. She comes up a lot, especially this year in 2022 of book hauls. I do have quite a bit of her work on my TBR. It is unfortunate that I heartily disagree with her feelings and views on trans people, because I do think she's a great author, but I don't like her policy or her thoughts or her ideals on that. The next 2 books are both NYRB books, and they are both unread. One is The Year of the French, and one is Madame de Pompadour, I think it's called, by Nancy Mitford, and The Year of the French is by Thomas Flanagan. These are both really big books, but you know how I feel about NYRB books. I just pick them up whenever I see them, and I will eventually read my entire collection because I know they're all going to be really good. The next book is finally another one that I have read, and that is another Alice Walker book. It is You Can't Keep a Good Woman Down, which is a collection of short stories. I read this last year for the TBR Spin, so I actually have a video all about it because I vlog all my TBR Spin books, so I will leave that video listed down below. Another unread book, unfortunately, is Maurice by E.M. Forrester. This is a queer classic, and I have read one E.M. Forrester. I read Howard's End. I really want to get to Maurice. I feel like it's going to be really heavy stories, and it's like a classic, right? It's like a queer classic, so sometimes those are a little intimidating to get to. So as of now, it is unread, but I'm excited to read it. So I say that this was a whim purchase, but I'm so glad that I did purchase it. This is a Bust by Ed Lynn. This is a novel about a young man in the 70s who is a police officer in Chinatown. He is of Chinese descent, and he's kind of the like token Asian guy on the police force at this time. It's about his struggle with that and his own identity, and also his battle with alcoholism. And I really love this book, and it really made me want to read more Ed Lin. I do have one other Ed Lin book, which I think is actually still in Ohio. It's been in Ohio for 2 years now, but I'm excited to get to it when I finally get it back from Ohio. Oh, the next book is a book that I don't want to read. I have not read yet. It is Milkman by Anna Burns. I find this book to be extremely intimidating. It's about a young woman, I think in the 80s in Northern Ireland, and it's all about her life and her experience with the Troubles, but it's like all run-on sentence, all stream of consciousness, one big long, never-ending paragraph of words, and I find that really, really intimidating. I would just not read this one, even though it's supposed to be amazing. I would just not read this one, but it was the winner of the Booker Prize, and since I am still doing my Booker Prize project, I do want to get to this one eventually. The next book is Red, and it's another one that I'm so glad that I picked up. I say in this video that I was on the fence about it because it was like a BookTube influenced book, and that is Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This is a novel, but it's all told like a screenplay for a TV show, and I loved it. I read it a few years ago. I blew through it. It's so easy to read. It's so bingeable. It's so compulsive to read, even though it's like a 300+ page book, because it's told in script style. It goes by so quick. So if you are interested in like alternative style written books, something written in verse, something written in screenplay, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this one. I thought it was really fun, but also dealt with tough topics. The next book is Miss Read Village School. This one I think is down in the basement. This is like I want to say it's like mid-century, what's the word? Like wholesome, tells you like how to live your life kind of book, and it's like a series of books, so I think it's like a be a good person sort of book, if that makes sense. I am interested in reading it, at least to just see what it's about. I think this is the first in the series, but it's not one that's like stood the test of time as far as my enthusiasm for wanting to read it, so I do believe that one is down in the basement. I'm going to put it as unread, not the basement, just because it is unread. It might be in the basement, but it's just unread. The next book is also unread. It's funny because I was just literally this morning looking at this book and thinking, oh, I have to get to this book, and maybe October, which is the month that we're going into imminently, where I am now, would be a good time to read it. The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I've read one other Catriona Ward, and I did enjoy it, although there was way more animal violence in that book than I was hoping there would be. So I am interested to see what The Last House on Needless Street is like. Ooh, the next book I have read, maybe unfortunately, it is The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict. I read this, was it last year? And it was, whatever year I read it, it was the worst book that I read that year. It was really, really bad. And it's a shame because I love the idea. I love the premise of someone writing what happened to Agatha Christie when she went missing. It's such an interesting concept to imagine what would happen during that time, what did happen during that time, but this was such a poorly written book and focused a lot on her abusive husband, which I thought was like a weird way to go for a women's book. Really didn't like this book, but I did read it. The next book is Louise Penny, A Fatal Grace, which is the second in the Armand Gramache detective series. I have read the first one and I really, really enjoyed it. I haven't gotten to this one yet. I don't know why exactly. I think just because these books seem very long. They're super quick to get through. They're super engaging, or at least the first one was for me, but I just haven't wanted to get to it. I think partly my enthusiasm for this book has been tainted by watching some of the TV show that whoever put out, Amazon, I think, because I didn't love that TV show very much. I didn't watch all of it either, but I think that that's one of the reasons that I haven't gotten back into this series. So I should really read A Fatal Grace because I'm sure it's great. But as of now, it is unread. The next book is read, and it's definitely a favorite. It's Miss Pinkerton by Mary Roberts Reinhardt, say Kevy, who I don't think make videos anymore, but I will leave her channel listed down below. Got me into Mary Roberts Reinhardt, and This one is the first of like a very short, loose series about Miss Pinkerton, who is a nurse who also helps the cops. Super fun, super engaging. Love Mary Roberts Reinhardt. Try to read a couple of her books every year because she's so great. She was a queen of crime, similar to Dorothy L. Sayers and Agatha Christie, but she is an American author. The next book is also read, and it is also a favorite. It is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. This was definitely a booktube influence buy and a booktube influence read, and I'm so happy that I read it. I know people have really mixed feelings about this book, but I loved it. I'm super excited that Olga Tokarczuk is coming out with a new, like, readable novel this year, because in between Drive Your Plow and the novel that she put out this year, there was The Books of Jacob, which is like, I don't know, like a 1,200 page book, which I'm just not going to read. Well, I mean, never say never, but I'm super excited for her latest book. That was the last book on that one. So let's see. This one was like at least slightly more even than the last few of these videos that we've done. How many were there? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 32. Out of 32 books, I did read 13. 5, 10, 15, 18 of them were unread, and some of those went to the basement, some of them went to collections, but we're just going to call them read and unread in this video. Sometimes it's really obvious that they're basement books. Sometimes it's really obvious that they are collection books, but I think this one will just count as read and unread. And then I did have one unhaul. So that was a better video than the last few. The last few, I think I only read like 3 of the books. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned here. Let me know if you think I should prioritize any of them. I only came up with one priority from this one. I think that's okay though. But if you saw a book in here that you think I should prioritize, definitely let me know. And check out the links that I have linked below to the videos that I mentioned. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!